For 30 years, I called those beachfront mansions home. Then, overnight, they vanished. No storm, no catastrophe. The ocean simply took them back. And the strangest thing? I didn't feel grief, I smiled. You're probably wondering how multi-million-dollar homes could disappear so suddenly. Stick around, and I'll explain how the sea reclaimed what always belonged to it. You won't believe what comes next. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if this story resonates, like, share, and subscribe to QA Stories. My name is James. I'm 35. I was sipping my morning coffee on the porch when the mailman handed me a thick envelope that would flip my world upside down. It was a notice from the Seashore Estates, HOA. Violation notice number 1. Comply within 30 days or face legal action. My pulse quickened with anger. After all I poured into this land, how could they dare to threaten me? Did they think I was some newbie they could push around? That notice felt like a declaration of war. And something told me it was only the first. The official letterhead didn't impress me. But the underlying message was loud and clear. I'm a marine biologist. I've studied the ocean and coastal ecosystems for decades. My modest wooden home isn't flashy, but every board holds the spirit of Hawaiian air and sun. It's not just a house. It's part of my research, my life. Built in the traditional Hawaiian way, it has withstood nature's fury for 3 decades. Deep foundations anchor it into bedrock, flexible wood sways with storms, and breathable materials adapt. With the tide, maybe I was overreacting to the letter, but the cold, bureaucratic tone felt like a punch to the gut. This land had been peaceful for so long. 2 days later, a line of luxury cars rolled in like a mafia scene. From the lead Mercedes emerged Olivia Williams. She radiated wealth and control, but it was her eyes that caught me. Calculating, dismissive. She looked at me like a relic to be cleared. You must be James, she said without waiting for confirmation. Her voice was sugary and sharp. I'm Olivia Williams, president of Seashore Estates. We have big plans for this coastline. She eyed my home like it was junk. Your house doesn't align with our vision. But don't worry, we'll assist you in relocating. I was stunned. She was standing on my land, offering to help me move, like she was doing me a favor. Her tone never faltered. Cold, entitled, unwavering. We're building an exclusive resort here, she continued, gesturing toward the beach with perfectly manicured fingers that had likely never touched sand. Private beach for residents only. No more tourists, no more locals. Just serene privacy. For those who can afford it. Her casual dismissal of everything I loved about this place hit me hard. It wasn't just my home she was targeting. It was a way of life. The men behind her were already snapping photos, taking measurements, and surveying the land. This wasn't a conversation. It was an occupation. 30 days, she stated flatly, turning to leave. Comply or leave. Your call. As her convoy faded into the distance, I stood there gripping the crumpled letter, fury tightening my chest. They weren't just threatening my house. They were threatening the ocean itself. This wasn't going to be a fair fight. But I knew what I was fighting for. Construction began the following week. Loud machinery blared from dawn until night. It felt like living in a combat zone. The constant drilling and clanging made it impossible to focus on my work. It didn't seem coincidental. It felt personal, psychological warfare. Their tactics weren't just disruptive. They were designed to break me. My driveway was blocked daily by construction trucks, forcing me to walk half a mile to my car. Complaints were met with shrugs. Waste piled near my property line, stinking and attracting pests. Portable toilets were strategically placed so trade winds sent their stench directly to my windows. And the noise? Like clockwork. Jackhammers from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., The violations arrived daily. My research equipment was now yard clutter. My house didn't match newly invented HOA color standards. Even my mailbox was non-compliant under retroactive rules. Each fine came with a price tag, $1.25 here, $150 there. It was harassment disguised as regulation. I didn't panic. I documented. I used my training to collect irrefutable evidence. Time-stamped photos, GPS coordinates, noise level readings, vehicle, logs, everything with scientific precision. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed the data. Then I saw it. Their construction was well into a federally protected coastal buffer zone, a zone where building was illegal without specific permits and environmental studies. I confirmed my suspicions with maps from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This wasn't ignorance. This was blatant disregard for the law. I dove into research like I was studying coral reefs again. The HOA hadn't just bypassed permits. They were destroying critical habitats for endangered monk seals and nesting sea turtles. It was enough to bring serious legal consequences. I collected water samples showing contamination, diesel, concrete particles, sediment, all of it killing fragile marine ecosystems. Every sample became a weapon. Every photo a bulletproof document. I filed complaints with the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources, the EPA, and county officials. I sent over a comprehensive report packed with everything they needed: data, legal citations, photos, GPS stamps. It was thorough enough to rival a doctoral thesis. 3 days later, an environmental inspector arrived. Construction halted. I watched from my porch, victorious, as the inspector took measurements, snapped photos, and recorded everything. Olivia's empire was cracking. Later that day, she stormed to my door. Face flushed, hair wild. "You did this. You filed that complaint. Do you know how much money you've cost us?" She was unraveling. The cold businesswoman was gone, replaced by a furious, entitled elite. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. This is war." I stayed calm. "Maybe you should have checked the law before bulldozing marine habitat." She glared, teeth clenched, but I wasn't afraid. Her anger only confirmed I was hitting where it hurt. Digging deeper into public records, I uncovered a web of shell companies. Olivia was hiding land ownership, avoiding taxes, and masking her identity. Her empire wasn't just unethical. It was possibly criminal. Then came her retaliation. She ordered the removal of my beloved coconut palms. Trees that had weathered storms and sheltered birds I studied, gone. Her excuse? Safety hazards, liability concerns, but I knew better. It was personal. Those trees were part of my history, and she wanted it erased. The next blow came when they poured concrete over a beloved public beach. Erected fake "no trespassing" signs. Families were turned away. Kids who had grown up on that sand now barred by private security. But I didn't explode. I documented license plates, locations, security conversations, photos, videos. Then I filed a second complaint. This time about illegal beach privatization. I alerted local environmental groups, provided contact info for activists. 2 days later, county officials arrived with a court order. The concrete was removed. Public access restored. For the first time, Olivia looked scared. Her money and influence couldn't erase federal law. She stood there, surrounded by silent machines, yelling into a phone while her project crumbled. And me? I stood quietly on my porch, knowing this fight wasn't over, but feeling, finally, like I had a real chance to win. The rhythmic pounding of jackhammers breaking up concrete was like music to my ears. The demolition of the illegal cement from the public beach brought a strange kind of peace. But I knew this was only the first volley in a much larger battle. Olivia thought she could scare off a lone scientist with bureaucratic threats and mind games, but she picked the wrong marine biologist to mess with. As her luxury development project slowly unraveled under federal scrutiny, I realized I was about to see just how ruthless a rich and desperate person could become to protect her empire. That letter had only been the opening shot. I didn't yet understand the scale of the war ahead. Her next move was more vicious and personal than anything I could have imagined. When legal tactics failed, Olivia turned to character assassination. She hired a private investigator who practically stalked me, digging into every corner of my life. When they couldn't find anything worse than overdue library books and a coffee addiction, Olivia escalated. She fabricated evidence and began planting rumors about my mental state through the HOA newsletter. Anonymous letters started to circulate, describing me as mentally unstable, claiming I harassed neighbors. The descriptions were laughable, clearly written by someone who'd never actually met me. I couldn't tell if I should be flattered by how seriously she viewed me as a threat or terrified at how far she was willing to go. Then things turned legal. Police showed up at my door investigating fake complaints, stalking, property damage. All lies, backed by doctored photos and supposed witness statements from strangers. I became a local pariah. Residents eyed me with suspicion, whispered as I passed, avoided me like I was dangerous. For the first time, I felt truly isolated. It was me against a powerful machine with endless resources. I began to wonder if I should have just taken their buyout and left, maybe Alaska, somewhere quiet. But surrendering to bullies isn't in my nature, especially ones this dirty. During those weeks, the loneliness began to sink in. I started to question everything. Was I being paranoid? Too stubborn? Losing perspective? I'd wake up at 3 a.m., second-guessing myself. Maybe Olivia was right. Maybe I should disappear. But just as I was teetering on the edge of giving up, a lifeline appeared. My old college roommate, Mark Anderson, called unexpectedly. Now a prominent environmental attorney in Honolulu, Mark specialized in cases just like mine. "James," he said, "I heard about Olivia Williams through the legal network. We need to talk." Hearing his voice eased a tension I hadn't realized I was carrying. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. Mark flew in the next day with a briefcase full of documents and a fire in his eyes I hadn't seen since our college debate days. He was no longer the laid-back student I remembered. He was sharp, polished, and utterly relentless. "I've been tracking the Williams family for years," he explained, laying out documents across my kitchen table. "Your case isn't isolated, James. This is part of something much bigger." As I scanned the evidence clippings, court records, financial reports, I realized he was right. This wasn't just about my house. Olivia's father, Thomas Williams, had ruined Mark's family business 15 years ago, using insider connections to manipulate public contracts and force Mark's family into bankruptcy. "My father never recovered," Mark said, eyes burning with quiet rage. "He died 2 years later. This is personal." Mark wasn't just helping. He had his own vendetta, and it gave our alliance a fierce resolve. The documents he brought revealed a decades-long pattern of corruption, bribes, forged environmental reports, intimidation tactics, and fraudulent real estate schemes. My environmental complaints were just the tip of the iceberg. He pulled out a thick folder labeled Williams Criminal Enterprise. "I've been building this case for years. You're just the latest chapter." With this new firepower, I confronted Olivia the next day. She arrived on my property ready to deliver another threat. Instead, I met her with calm confidence. "Tell me about your father's 2003 conviction for securities fraud," I said. Her face lost all color. For the first time, she looked truly afraid. Business seems to run in the family, I added. Her voice shook with restrained rage. You want to play dirty? I'll bury you in lawsuits. My lawyers will bleed you dry. But the arrogance was gone. For the first time, she understood she was vulnerable. Mark and I decided we weren't just defending my name, we were going on the offensive. We filed suit for fraud, environmental violations, racketeering, and emotional distress. This isn't just your fight anymore, Mark said, shaking my hand. It's about holding them accountable. I wasn't alone anymore. I had a brilliant, determined ally with a personal score to settle. Olivia had no idea what she'd unleashed. But the war wasn't over. And we hadn't seen her final move. The HOA brought in a high-powered law firm from Los Angeles legal. Assassins known for burying opposition in paperwork until they gave up or went bankrupt. They filed countersuits, defamation, business interference, using every delay trick possible. Legal fees piled up. I sold equipment, picked up freelance consulting work, and drained my savings. Many nights I'd sit on the porch, watching the tide, wondering if I could keep going. Was I being foolish? Too proud? But every time I thought of quitting, Mark reminded me. Walking away meant letting Olivia win and destroy this place forever. That letter had been a challenge. And I wasn't backing down. Despite the financial strain, we made steady progress. Every violation documented, every permit forged, every bribe traced. My scientific background was essential, presenting complex data in ways judges and juries could understand. The legal process moved slowly, frustratingly so. But that slowness gave us time to build a rock-solid case. And I poured my frustration into the one thing I could control: data. Mark dug deep beyond current violations. He spent days combing through archives at the University of Hawaii, researching geological surveys and disaster reports. His thoroughness reminded me why he'd always been a force to be reckoned with. "James, you need to see this," he called one afternoon. His voice was buzzing with excitement. I found a geological survey from 1975. This entire area was hit by a tsunami 50 years ago. The data he uncovered aligned perfectly with my coastal studies. The region bore all the markers: unusual sediment layers, displaced coral fragments, and unnaturally flat terrain, proof of historic tsunami devastation. Should have noticed the signs earlier. I'd been so focused on recent violations that I missed what lay beneath my feet. We decided to keep the tsunami data secret for now. It would be our final move, played when Olivia thought she was winning. Meanwhile, we kept legal pressure on her through the environmental violations. Reading those old reports' descriptions of 60-foot waves sweeping miles inland, I quietly began preparing my home for what could come next. The thought of history repeating itself crept into my mind. Not because I feared losing the lawsuit, but because I sensed that nature might handle the situation in its own violent way. I couldn't tell if it was scientific instinct or just paranoia. But something in those old disaster reports made me uneasy about what the ocean might have in store for this coastline. Our historical research had uncovered something far more troubling than I initially thought. The tsunami that struck in 1975 wasn't a random event. It was part of a recurring cycle of seismic activity along the Pacific Ring of Fire that happened every 50 to 75 years. We were well within that time frame, and the geological clues were already surfacing for those who could read them. The uptick in seismic tremors in the Pacific, abnormal tidal patterns I had logged during my daily observations, and the peculiar changes in marine animal behavior, all signs my 30 years of fieldwork taught me to take seriously, pointed toward something big. While Olivia celebrated minor legal wins and pushed forward with her doomed real estate project, I watched from my porch with growing apprehension. Years Research had taught me to read the ocean's behavior the way a seasoned sailor reads the weather, and something was undeniably off. Subtle deviations in wave formations, fish appearing in the wrong regions at unusual times, and unpredictable tides told me deep ocean currents were shifting under seismic stress. The ocean was sending a message, and for the first time in months, I was listening. Perhaps I was overanalyzing natural variances. But my gut told me change was on the horizon, a seismic one that would make our courtroom battle seem like a mirror. Footnote. As we geared up for the next legal phase, I couldn't have known that Olivia Williams was on the verge of uncovering something that would expose the true scale of her family's deception. A revelation so vast, it would force me to choose between our legal victory and the lives of hundreds. Because sometimes, the real danger isn't the person fighting to steal your land. It's the one willing to sacrifice innocent lives to protect their empire. When Olivia's construction convoy suddenly vanished, I realized this wasn't just about my beachfront house. This was about something far bigger, and I was ready to bring it all down. The Tsunami Warning Center released its standard advisory, but this time it felt different, urgent. Early reports framed it as a minor threat, using sanitized bureaucratic language to avoid panic. But I knew this coastline better than anyone, and what I saw unfolding pointed to something far more serious. Everything I'd been noticing, the wave patterns, marine behavior, tidal anomalies clicked into place under the looming threat of a major seismic event. And through Mark's contacts and research, we made a horrifying discovery. Olivia hadn't just ignored the danger. She had deliberately concealed it. She had paid a disgraced academic, stripped of credentials for falsifying research, to fabricate a geological safety report, claiming the area was disaster-proof. I read that report twice, stunned that someone could so blatantly lie about such a critical issue. This wasn't just greed. It was reckless endangerment on a massive scale. Worse still, she bribed local officials to alter tsunami hazard maps on the documents shared with prospective homebuyers. People investing their life savings were shown doctored reports that marked extreme danger zones as safe. I even secretly recorded an HOA meeting where Olivia confidently dismissed tsunami warnings as fear-mongering by environmental radicals. She told nervous investors the homes were built to the highest engineering standards, rooted to bedrock, and invincible against natural disasters. Yet she was knowingly placing families in uninhabitable zones declared hazardous by federal geologists. This went beyond fraud. It bordered on mass manslaughter. Still, Mark urged caution. Releasing our evidence too soon could jeopardize the case. I felt morally trapped. Every day I kept quiet, the guilt weighed heavier. Olivia, meanwhile, hired a PR firm to spin the narrative, accusing me of spreading hysteria and branding me as a radical trying to sabotage the community. She organized an HOA meeting to publicly shame me, calling me unstable and dangerous people. I once thought allies now looked at me with suspicion, believing her lies. It felt like shouting into a void, my warnings drowned by blind faith in her promises. So I stopped trying to argue. I acted. I reinforced my house using traditional Hawaiian construction techniques, moved valuables to higher floors, and stocked up on water, medical kits, and battery-powered communications. Generations of islanders had survived disasters before modern alerts. Their wisdom became my guide. In a last-ditch effort, I pinned historical tsunami photos to the community bulletin board, black and white images of the 1975 devastation. Olivia had them torn down within hours, accusing me of harassment and threatening legal action. While her residents hosted parties and gave grand tours to visitors, I watched the waves with unease. I saw the deep currents stirring, dolphins changing course, and sea colors shifting subtly. To the untrained eye, it looked like paradise. But I knew better. As Olivia's mansions neared completion, filled with unsuspecting families, I realized I was standing on the edge of a tragedy far bigger than any courtroom could contain. I would soon face the unthinkable, choosing between justice and the lives of innocent people. The ocean doesn't care about lawsuits, wealth, or guilt. It only knows what belongs to it. Then, one night at 3 a.m., it happened. I woke to a sound I had never heard in 3 decades by this shore, a deep thunderous roar of a wrathful sea. Not the rhythmic crash of waves, but a primal scream of unfathomable force. This wasn't the minor tsunami everyone brushed off. This was nature unchained. I gathered my supplies and climbed to the highest part of my home, watching through reinforced windows as the first wave struck. When the water receded, it unveiled something that turned my stomach. The HOA had illegally stripped thousands of tons of sand from the beach to build their homes, leaving gaping voids and shaky foundations. Olivia's highest standards were built on stolen ground. Each home, priced in the millions, crumbled like paper. Meanwhile, my wooden house stood firm, built the traditional way with deep pilings driven into bedrock. Terrified residents fled. Some banged on my door, begging for shelter. And while I should have felt guilt, I couldn't deny the dark satisfaction of seeing 30 years of harassment swept away in under an hour. Through the window, I saw Olivia drenched, sobbing in the ruins of her dream. Her Mercedes drifted like trash in the tide. For a fleeting moment, I pitied her. Then I remembered the lives she endangered. As dawn broke, the full devastation came into focus. Every HOA home was gone, shattered and floating for miles. But the worst part? It didn't have to happen. Had Olivia followed the rules, respected the science, and heeded the warnings, those families would still have homes, and the ones who didn't survive might still be alive. Federal investigators swarmed the scene. Charges rained down on Olivia: fraud, falsifying safety reports, reckless endangerment, and conspiracy. She faced decades in prison. Her assets were seized. Once worth millions, she now awaited trial in a FEMA trailer. All accusations against me were dropped. Mark and I were vindicated. My name was cleared. I wasn't the crazy one after all. The community slowly came around. Survivors thanked me, though it was too late for many. The state brought me in as a coastal safety consultant. Law schools used our case as a cautionary tale. We hadn't just won a case, we set a precedent. One that would help shield other communities from greedy developers who put profit before people. Now, as I sit on my porch sipping morning coffee, watching the beach begin to heal, I feel something deeper than triumph. It's not about winning. It's about balance. Olivia's empire? Gone. The ocean? Still here, eternal and unrelenting. In the end, you can't fool nature. You can't own what belongs to everyone. And when you try, it always catches up to you.